Hey all, Grolo here. Hope everyone that celebrated it had an awesome Thanksgiving yesterday. I sure did. I took an equally awesome nap after dinner. CIG dropped another IAE show. This one had some conversation about the flight model and master modes, which we briefly touched on the last video, the last IAE show video. Unsurprisingly, I hear that there's been some passionate reactions to this. Now, look, I'm not an ace pilot. I have no interest in being an ace pilot, and giving my 2 cents on gameplay videos like this is much different than me giving my opinions on like the game and its development, given my systems architecture background. When I watch shows like this IAE show, like I did just a day or two ago, I'm really giving my 2 cents as the leader of an organization within the verse, because I'm that too, in addition to my day job. So a little different there, just to call that out. So cool, let's watch. Oh, wait, one last thing. For those that missed the last video, we hit 1,000 subs on the channel, which is insane, crazy, awesome. Thank you again. And we're going to do an AMA to mark the milestone. So I'm collecting questions in a YouTube community post, and I'm linking that post in the description below. So I hope you take the time to go ask a question. I'm looking forward to that. So cool. All right, let's check this out.
Welcome back to the IAE Show. On today's episode, we explore mastering flight with Rich Tyra, John Crew, and Jared Huckabee. It's Thanksgiving on Earth, so we give thanks to the best ship manufacturer in the verse, Drake. I said it, and I meant it. Nobody owns me.
No.
It's the IAE Show, and it starts right now.
Okay, we're back. Part 3, final part of our conversation about life of spaceships and Star Citizen, and it's time to address the Idris in the room here, master modes. We'd been talking about master modes for quite some time. We've been building it up as the big savior of the spaceship combat experience. It released to mixed reviews at times. You know, some people are for it, some people are less than for it. We'll just say that kindly. I want to talk about what our plan is, what our vision is. Where are we going with this? What is the plan moving forward with master modes? And I'm just going to take off and leave you two here. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Right. I think the big thing around master modes is that it never was designed to be a static piece of development. We always wanted to make sure that we were adding in new systems as they came along that then influenced those design decisions that we made.
Never implemented to be a static piece of development. I've watched some of the other commentary on this already, and it's you know, the kind of resounding sentiments I've collected so far from others is like, this is CIG walking back on master modes. Oh my, like I don't get that at all. But like as he pointed out, like master modes, and they said this like whenever they implemented it, they said like, hey, this is not done. We are putting in a partially baked thing. We want to start to see how it impacts gameplay. So the fact that they're going to continue evolving it in other directions, like that was never off the table. So I don't understand why some people are acting like, oh, they're walking it back. They realize it's a disaster, whatever. Let's keep watching. But that's just my initial take.
We made at the time. And I think 2 big pieces of feature work that we're going to be bringing to Star Citizen that's going to have a drastic change on how we implement master modes is going to be crafting and quantum boost. So right now with master modes itself, we have obviously the 2 master modes, SCM and NAV. A big thing is that we're going to actually be demoting or converting those modes from master modes to operator modes.
Thank you. I think I said this in the last IAE show video, but that is the one thing I have hated about master modes. Like, I've always kind of agreed with the intent of master modes and slowing things down a little and so on and so forth, but like I hated the mode switching. It just felt clunky to me. I hated things like if I was sitting in a turret and the pilot like converted to nav mode, all of a sudden my turret wasn't working. Like, it was just so unintuitive, and as a pilot having to like switch back and forth, like I hated. In the last video, I mentioned that I hoped that like engineering gameplay would come into this more, where like manual management of power could be used in some way to like go between like focusing on propulsion and speed or combat shielding and gunfire. But so anyway, all that is to say, I'm very glad that they're removing the modes.
What that inherently means is that we're still going to have a mode that is dedicated to you fighting and having combat. There is going to be a mode that's dedicated to your quantum. But we're going to be removing some of the fail-safes, restrictions, yes, that had when you're switching between these modes. We're going to be moving towards one cohesive speed between all operator modes. That speed is going to be more akin to what you'd imagine SCM speeds are now.
Nice.
But there's two big, huge caveats that come into that. First off is crafting. So crafting will allow you to upgrade your ship and to tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you want to have combat at higher speeds, if you have a tier 5 ship and you have the best thrusters and you've specialized, you've bought an interceptor ship, that will be more applicable to those types of ships. So that gives people options to choose, like I want to have this type of gameplay versus this type of gameplay. Having that cohesive, unified speed, the one thing that we really need to address is this kind of like nav flight mode that is kind of, it sits in this very odd position.
The crafting thing, I don't 100% get. Like, I get that like it's going to impact ship tuning, velocity, that kind of stuff, but I don't get like it's. I don't quite understand how they're saying it's going to impact the flight model. Aside, like they're kind of describing it as like, if I want faster combat, I'm going to upgrade my ships, but that doesn't really resonate with me. Like, I feel like everybody is going to be wanting to upgrade their ship tiers. Like, I can't imagine a whole lot of people are going to be happy just sitting on their tier 1 ship forever. But like, it feels to me like progressing your ship is kind of like progression in other games. Like, so everybody's going to be chipping away at ship progression, or most people, I would imagine. Even, I would suspect even like industry ships will want to be upgrading, and they'll be gaining like velocity and agility and stuff along the way. So this sounds a little weird to me, but maybe they'll talk about it more.
In terms of you get out of an LZ and you're flying up to the space station, in atmosphere, your speed is really closer to SCM speeds anyway. You're not flying at 1,000 meters a second. You can pick up start a bounty hunter mission now, be sent to another planet, and then the closest quantum point to that POI might be 500 kilometers away. And that means that, as we add more dense POIs, that's going to only exacerbate this situation because we can't have quantum markers everywhere. And when we start to add more space exploration and more missions towards the different guilds that we're operating on, where you're going to having to go into deep space and go into these large distances, you don't want to be in a position where that's taking such a huge amount of time. We want you to be spending more time doing the mission than flying there. This is where Quantum Boost comes in. Now, the way that Quantum Boost works is kind of, it connects your flight speeds to your quantum travel. So quantum travel is for flying millions of kilometers away when you have a specific quantum marker that you're flying towards. Then you've got your flight speeds, which should be, say sub 20 kilometers, where you're flying around, exploring on the planet, or fighting at a POI, or doing a bounty hunting. But anywhere above that, we want to kind of accelerate that process of that navigation. And Quantum Boost goes all the way up to your top speed of SCM, or top speed of our flight mode, your current nav mode, all the way up to essentially a tenth of quantum travel speed. You have this spectrum of speeds that allow you to navigate the large spaces in our game, but also then still stay true to some of the intentions that we delivered with master modes.
Master modes we talked a lot about, and the combat side broadly staying the same. The nav side that was the limiting factor, we often said, like, it's too fast, but not fast enough. The amount of times we watch new players go into nav, go towards a station, and then we'd be sat there going, they've not stopped in time. So quantum boost was always supposed to be that bridge gap, and without
That's probably one of them.
we were left with this sort of nav mode that didn't quite do what we wanted. And it also, because it's quantum and it's creating a bubble around your ship, allows us less friction in the traversal, because you go in quantum, you come out quantum, you don't have to apply all this G-force.
The rules of physics are
The rules of
different
physics are different because you're not physically hurtling at that speed, you're wrapping a bubble of time and space around yourself. So you come out, you can stop dead, you're not having that expanse moment where you're all being ripped apart from the G-force. So you see that space station coming towards you, you stop, you stop.
The one limitation that we are retaining is the fact that you can't have your quantum drive enabled and also your shields. And ultimately, that's a binary decision. Operator modes will start off as the default configuration that we've set in terms of the controls, in terms of the MFDs and what you're casting onto your HUD, in terms of your resource network presets. But that doesn't stop you from then going in and customizing it. We're providing an initial, hey, this is what we think is a good default setting. But then it's up to the players then to customize what they want on their cast, what they want on the MFDs, and then they have options to them. And they shouldn't have this constant switching modes to gain access to certain operator modes. You know, we're removing some of that friction.
And through all of this, because that binary
Stuff, the quantum boost stuff, they've been talking about this for a while, and this is not like a new thing. They've been talking about this for as long as, like at least as long as we've had master modes in the game. I've been hearing about this quantum boost as like another thing they were going to be adding to help us navigate larger distances, not have to set a marker to engage the quantum drive. So again, this definitely feels like an evolution of the flight model, not a rewind and reverse step. I also think it's interesting because whenever they first started talking about it, it sounded like quantum boost was going to be yet another thing on top of what we had been given. But it sounds like now they're moving in the direction of quantum boost integrating more and becoming part of the flight model and kind of replacing that standalone nav mode. So that makes a lot of sense. And I can definitely see how this will get rid of that clunky feeling I was talking about. It's exciting. Definitely, like, what they're describing feels a lot more like it will have a lot more continuity in the player experience.
distinction is between modes. You have to be in this mode or this mode, and there's all these very strict rules between those modes. You keep your weapons through all this, so this now becomes a more tactical decision in combat. But if you need that sudden burst of speed, either to get away from something or to catch up to something, you make the choice. You sacrifice your shields, certainly, but you can still bring your weapons to bear and stuff, get there, and the second you're out.
And ultimately, that is underpinned by your resource network engineering. So if you're on a single-seater ship, that's obviously at the pilot's behest. But also if you're on a larger multi-crew ship, you can then use the engineering terminal to be able to have those presets available to you.
And through the use of crafting to improve your components and, of course, your presets and quantum boost, rather, you can get up to speeds that are approaching the current nav speed and stuff like that. So we're not taking that speed away. We're defaulting everything to a speed that is closer to today's SCM.
Yeah.
And then giving the player choices in how and when they can get up to that speed without completely disabling everything.
I mean, ultimately, it allows us to keep the default. We're trying to move towards a balance across the game where you can start off easier and it gets harder. So we want the default to be open and compatible to lots of players, but then as you start to specialize and it becomes hard to master and you start to work in the different avenues of different professions that you like, that's where you can start to customize your ship. And I think there's a key takeaway or a key point to also make is that if you don't want to craft, if you don't want to go down that route because you just want to shoot ships and be a combat pilot, or
before they talk more about crafting, I wanted to just comment on they mentioned engineering, which excites me. I really want to see engineering play a bigger role in everything they're describing, with like trying to eke out the most speed you can from the ship, or you know, that decision like between boosting and shielding and rate of weapon fire, like all that stuff. I'm hoping that we see the engineering terminal be very integral to some of that balancing and decision making. So that's really cool.
You just want to be a miner or a space trucker. There's nothing wrong with that. You can still gain access to this because player trading is going to be something that allows players to gain access to these components and ships without having to go through some of the grind that they have, and obviously they're now reaping the benefits of that. But you have lots of choice.
Obviously, there isn't one prototypical Star Citizen player. Developing a system that's going to please everybody is an impossible task. We can only work towards our goals and our vision for what we want this to be, and hope it applies to as many people as possible.
100%.
What I like about this is that you can never go wrong with putting the choice in the player's hands. At any given situation, when you're going to want your speed, when you're going to want your shields, you'll always have your weapons from now on. So like this, just put those choices in the player's hands and let them let them decide for themselves.
That's what this whole game is about, in my opinion. Like, come up with a set of rules for a universe and put that in the player's hands. Let them decide what they're going to do with it.
It's one of those things unique about Star Citizen is that we get to develop this, and then we don't have to wonder. We can put it into players' hands and get that feedback immediately and then take it in. I think there's a real chance for this to be the spaceship experience we've been working towards this whole time.
I think the big thing to take away from all the things that we've discussed is that none of these things are designed or implemented in isolation. And where we're trying to go is that, you know, when we talk about combat that is, say, not as fast as it was in previous updates, hopefully people understand we're doing that not just because we don't like fast combat, it's because we want to give players options to gain fast combat or gain slower combat depending on what choices they make with crafting or their purchases. Then it's on a scenario where, you know, capital warfare is, you know, you need to be able to use precision targeting, and that's why we developed that feature so that you can have good subcomponent targeting. And I think when you start to see some of this bigger picture come together and you start to see all of these individual pieces connect, you might not agree with it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. That's how we're trying to connect all these pieces together to create this experience that ultimately Chris is the one that is setting that vision, and we're trying to execute on that vision for Chris. And that is what we're trying to work towards.
We talked about that.
Can start to see some of these pieces connect together and why some of these decisions have been made. And you know, hopefully they enjoy it ultimately.
We talked about the vision aspect. If you go back to development time video we put out, again, he brought up the crafting thing. I'm still, I don't know. If you understand this, drop me a comment. I would love to get other perspectives on this. Like, he keeps saying, like, you know, you can choose to craft to, like, increase the speed of your ship. Like, who would voluntarily fly a ship with a lower top-end speed than it could possibly have? That doesn't make sense to me. But I do completely agree with crafting playing an element in ship specs and capabilities. Like, yeah, I absolutely want that. But I still don't think that, like, it makes sense to, like, talk about that in the same breath as like the rules of the flight model. I don't know. I find that a little strange, but anyway, he mentioned capital combat and like kind of slowing down combat and like all of this being interconnected. I couldn't agree more. Like, whenever they were talking about the capital combat in the last video that we watched together, like I called that out, like the need to slow things down to give players more time to react, more options, that kind of stuff. Whenever like he talks about the subcomponent targeting and stuff like that, and the captain in one capital ship calling out those targets in the target capital ship and relaying that to players, and like I was talking about, like, you can kind of begin to see the need for things to move a little bit slower so that you have time for all these things to connect and transpire and be conveyed to one another on the battlefield. If everybody's just flying around at the freaking speed of light, like, you know, you quickly get into a situation where you're just mashing buttons. Or at least that's my perspective. Maybe it's just because I'm old. I don't know. Like, I certainly wouldn't have time to process all that information that amount of time. So I think that slowing combat down to some degree over like past flight models, which makes a whole lot of sense, that we can get more in depth, more engaged, more interesting combat. One other thought I had, they talked about like the bubble around the ship as you enter like that quantum boost, and like whenever you say stop, it stops. Like that sounded really cool to me. At the time, I immediately thought of like all the space movies where you see like a fleet of ships like all of a sudden just come out of quantum, like, and they're just there. I don't know. That sounds cool.
At the end of the day.
So Rich, John, thank you so much for taking the time to share this vision of Star Citizen's spaceship gameplay. I think there's no better place to do that than IAE, a celebration of all spacecraft and vehicles in Star Citizen. It's come to my attention that the last two parts, when I've attempted to move us on to our next topic, folks have been changing the channel. So I don't want you to do that here. Up next, I'm going to talk directly with John Crew and explain to him my true vision for the spaceship Jalopy once and for all.
Change the channel.
I don't have anything to add for the rest of this, so I encourage you, if you haven't seen this whole video, I'm linking to it obviously in the description below, so click it and continue watching. But that's all I got. Very excited. I think this sounds like a really good evolution of master modes and the flight model in general. The things I've been complaining about for the past several months, like this seems to address all of those complaints. I can't wait to get my hands on this and test it out, and I'm sure that we'll all be talking a lot about this. I'm interested what the timeline will be. I don't think they mentioned that. Like, how soon are we going to be able to get our hands on this? I hope it's relatively soon, because it sounds very cool. If you know, drop a comment, or I'll go Googling for it. Anyway. It was good, fun. I'll see you all again soon. Don't forget the AMA, link below. And if you're looking for a place to do some gaming on hinge.gg, there's a link right on the video now. Click it. Should be like right over there. See y'all. Bye.